This is part 4 of the audiobook series, Can We Be Strangers Again? This is also the final part of this book, and I hope you enjoyed this audiobook series.
A birthday bash and breaking news, finally, after 3 days of intense anticipation, my birthday had arrived. As I prepared for the chaos that usually accompanied this day, the line was quiet for a moment, but I could feel the emotion between us, hanging there, unspoken yet palpable. Then she spoke softly, her voice almost a whisper, "Thank you." After that, I hung up the call, feeling a mix of relief and concern for Taniska. I checked my phone, hoping for some distraction, and found a notification from Avantika, "Happy birthday, Dev." I paused for a moment, contemplating whether to reply or just let it be. In the end, I typed back a simple, "Thank you." But as I stared at the screen, my mind drifted to deeper thoughts. Is physical cheating more painful, or is it the emotional betrayal that truly breaks you? It's like asking which cuts deeper, the knife or the words that follow. Physical cheating. Sure, it hurts, leaving bruises and a burning anger that eventually fades. But emotional betrayal? It's a different beast. It haunts you. It's a relentless echo that makes you question everything about yourself. Was I not enough? Did I miss the signs? You don't just mourn the loss of love, you grieve the death of your self-worth, drowning in a sea of self-doubt that feels inescapable. That I had experienced both with Avantika. And now I watched Tanishka suffer. The same torment of emotional betrayal, her pain a mirror reflecting my own scars. It's easier to mend a broken heart than to rebuild broken trust. One leaves scars, the other leaves doubts. Bay ************************** D. I muttered to myself as I was about to hit the sack. Bhagwan, please let me have at least one normal birthday. I can't handle this many shocks every year. With that, I buzzed off, hoping for some semblance of peace amidst the chaos. Healing together slowly but surely, things began to shift. Tanishka was healing day by day, and I was right there, making everything possible for her. Each laugh we shared and each late-night conversation lifted her spirits just a little higher. The dark clouds were parting, revealing the sun that had long been hidden. Our bond blossomed into something beautiful. We could talk about anything, family problems, dreams, fears, nothing felt off limits. It got to the point where if I didn't hear her say goodnight, I couldn't sleep. We talked so much that her voice became essential to my nights, but as the days passed, something began to gnaw at me. While Tanishka and I were growing closer, I started questioning everything. Was this just friendship? Why did it feel so much deeper? I didn't want to overthink things, but I couldn't shake the feeling that our connection was crossing a line. Why did it feel like I was becoming so attached? Was it the late-night conversations that lingered long after we hung up? I tried to remind myself that we were just friends, yet every laugh and every shared moment felt like a thread weaving us closer together. What was I supposed to do with this? I didn't want to ruin what we had, but I couldn't ignore the way my heart raced when she laughed. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. As the months passed, something shifted between us. My behavior toward Tanishka slowly started to change. The playful ease that once denoted our friendship was fading from my side, replaced by something deeper, something more complicated. The questions I asked weren't just the ones a friend would ask, they were the kind that came with layers of meaning, with intentions I didn't fully understand myself. The late-night conversations didn't feel light anymore. They felt weighted, like each word was testing the boundaries of what we were. Friendship? It didn't feel like that anymore. Now, everything felt like a countdown to something more, something unspoken. It was as if we were searching for something beyond friendship, even though I wasn't ready to admit it. When she laughed, it wasn't just her laughter I heard, it was the way my heart reacted, skipping a beat, betraying what I had been trying to suppress. The social service bomb. And just like that, my third term was wrapping up. Before I could even think about catching a breath, the college decided to drop the bomb. Apparently, after taking 20 locks in tuition, they figured, why not send these kids to do some free labor in the name of giving back to society? I opened the email with a sense of dread. A month of social service? All right, let's see where they were shipping us off. Scrolling through the Excel sheet, my eyes stopped at my name, Rajasthan, and I couldn't help but laugh at the sheer ridiculousness of it all. Out of all the places in the country, they had to send me there, but wait, it got better. Along with my golden ticket to the desert, there was a team list, Vibev, Tunme, Prashun, and Kostub. A solid mix of workaholics, alcoholics, and, well, the occasional free rider. Just perfect, and the mission? Stopping tiger poaching in Ranthambore.
Yeah.
Because who better to solve a wildlife crisis than a bunch of overworked MBA students? I mean, we were supposedly experts in critical thinking, right? But when I thought about it, our version of critical thinking seemed to boil down to something much simpler, just asking ChatGPT, what's the best way to save tigers? And can you break it down into bullet points, please? When I shared my plans with Tanishka, she burst out laughing. Ranthambore? It's near Haridwar, right? I couldn't help but think, how does she know the Indian map better than I do?
Yeah.
I guess so. I replied, trying to sound confident. I grinned, so, we can totally meet up then. She nodded, Han, Milsocht Hain. The only problem was how to convince my team to let me leave for a few days to meet Tanishka. I could already picture the conversation. Hey guys, I know we're supposed to be the tiger saviors of Ranthambore, but I've got a more pressing matter, like hanging out with Tanishka. So, if you could just hold the poachers here while I go rescue my social life, that'd be great. I could already picture their shocked faces as they processed the idea of me ditching them to meet a girl, trying to explain that to a bunch of guys who thought a friend meant a potential girlfriend. I'd have to somehow convince them that it was totally normal to prioritize friendship over saving the tigers. When we landed in Ranthambore, I quickly realized something. Rajasthan had some pretty decent people. Which led me to one simple conclusion, Avantika, definitely a factory defect. I mean, how can an entire state be filled with nice folks, and yet she's the one glitch? Anyway, our reporting officer kindly informed us we had a meeting scheduled for the next day. In this scorching heat? Fantastic. Naturally, we needed a solution. That's when Kostub came up with the most logical conclusion, beer. It was the perfect antidote to being roasted alive. So, we grabbed a few bottles and settled in for the evening. Well, except for Tunme, the token guy in every group who thinks cold drinks and snacks are as thrilling as life gets. He was probably off sipping coke somewhere, and we didn't say a word because, honestly, he was the only real workaholic among us. Rest? Free riders or alcoholics, but my real challenge was figuring out how to sneak out early without making it seem like I was ditching tiger saving duty for something a bit more important. After a few rounds, I decided it was time to drop the bomb. Guys, listen, I need to head out the day after tomorrow. I'm meeting up with Tanishka. A stunned silence fell over the group. And the laughter erupted. Wait, so Tuyahan project chodku ek ladki se miln jaraha hai? Kostub exclaimed, wide-eyed, ladki ka chakar, babubia. Vibev chimed in, winking like he just solved a mystery. Prashun, jiski zaban se zyada sakal kali ti, couldn't resist throwing in his 2 cents. By, tu hi sex nahi milega. Tu matja, wo periods main hogi, deklina, he said, shaking his head as if I'd just committed the ultimate crime against humanity. I couldn't help but think, Kia Bolu and Sapko? But somehow, they were all convinced, it must be the magic of alcohol. Well, except for Tunme, the sober one in the group. The coke-sipping legend had been uncharacteristically quiet, staring at me with the cold drink bottle in hand, silently. The morning after next night, I was at the train station, a ticket clutched in me hand like it was my golden ticket to an adventure. By 6 a.m., I stepped off the train in Haridwar, greeted by the serene beauty of the place. I felt the excitement bubbling inside me as I took a cab to Tanishka's apartment. As I stepped out of the cab, my eyes landed on her, waiting for me downstairs. For a moment, the world faded away. Tanishka was a vision in a soft pink nightdress, the kind that seemed to glow in the early morning light. And let me tell you, it was less friendly vibes, and more, you might need a life jacket for this wave of feelings. We exchanged a side hug, and I felt a rush of warmth. Itni suba ki hai train mili tea, she said, her voice still laced with sleep, a playful smile curling on her lips. Airy, main aya, wanahi ka hai? I replied, attempting to keep it light. Once inside her apartment, she glanced at me and said, "Main thodider so rahihun. Tubi dusser camera main soja. Wa, kia treatment high." I thought, feeling both amused and annoyed by her casual invitation. With her voice fading into the background, she drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, I pulled out my laptop to finish some work. I needed to wrap up everything so Tunmei wouldn't have any complaints, conversations and confessions. By the time the clock struck 10, there was a soft knock on my door. Tanishka stood there, now more awake, her eyes sparkling with that familiar mischief. We spent the morning catching up, and I told her everything about how I managed to convince my team to let me come here. She talked about her B-school interviews, apparently a nightmare involving corporate jargon and an interviewer who looked like he hadn't slept in days. We even did a little postmortem on Mihir, with the mutual conclusion that he was, in fact, a certified CH******, yeah, though, I could still sense a part of her that hadn't fully let go of him, a little itch of something deep down. After that we decided to step out for a bit and headed to her so-called favorite restaurant, Kalsang Cafe. She had hyped it up so much, but when we bit into the momos, the disappointment hit harder than I expected. Yeah, to hostel kumes whale momos jay's taste. Kar rahi hain, I joked, and she laughed, but even she couldn't defend them. So much for that recommendation. After the tragic Momo incident, we grabbed some beers and headed back to her place for a low-key Netflix and chill session. After a long discussion about what movie to watch, we were stuck between her obsession with anime and my love for SRK. But after a bit of back and forth, we settled on something we both could tolerate, Conjuring. Horror and beer, perfect combo. We stretched out on her bed, sharing a blanket as we leaned back, heads resting against the wall, our legs stretched out in front of us. We cracked open the cans, and with the cold CZ bubbling up, the room was comfortably dim, with just enough light from the tea flickering across her face. She was fully absorbed in the LM, while I found myself getting lost, not in the LM, but in her. We sat side by side, occasionally sipping our beers. I tried to focus on the movie, but all I could think about was her, sitting right next to me. So close yet so far from where I wanted her to be. She looked so relaxed, but my heart was racing faster than it had any right to. Given that Conjuring wasn't exactly terrifying me, I was thinking about what I really wanted to tell her. What I had been holding back for so long. My heart raced faster than the spooky soundtrack. Should I just blurt it out? Tell her how I actually feel? The movie was halfway through, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, and decided to ask. I turned towards her, my voice low. Ekbot bolu? She paused, beer can halfway to her lips, and glanced at me. Han, bol na, she said, taking a sip like it was no big deal. But for me, this moment felt monumental. Tanishka, we are not on the same page. My words stumbling out, there was no dramatic I love you, no grand declaration. It was simpler, more honest. Just like how she had told me once, I had fallen for her, and now it was out there. She stared at me for a moment, then set her beer down on the table, her expression soft but serious. Dev, this time. There was no Basu, just Dev, she said quietly, like she was piecing her thoughts together. Kia Hogaya Isa? I felt a lump in my throat, but I knew I had to be honest. I don't see you as just a friend anymore. You're not just someone I care about, you're becoming my everything, I confessed, my heart racing as the words left my mouth. She sighed, the smile still lingering but fading quickly. Abby. I can't see anything, Dev. I can't build trust again, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I could see the alcohol swirling in her eyes, but it wasn't just that, it was everything she was holding back. Her words cut through the quiet, soft yet loaded with meaning. Abhi bhi kuch hai, for Mihir. I don't know what, but there's something. I could feel her struggling to make sense of it all, her eyes glistening as if holding back more than just alcohol. She continued, her voice trembling, but I don't want to see anyone that way right now, Dev. Sometimes I feel worthless, like I'm just lost. Tears began to well up in her eyes, and I felt something twist in my chest. Without thinking, I pulled her into a side hug, her head resting gently on my shoulder. You're not worthless, I whispered, feeling the weight of her emotions. You're the best person someone can have. She stayed there, her breathing slowing, as if the words were a bomb she needed but didn't know that she pulled back slightly, just enough to look at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. Bäst rate hein na, she whispered, her words laced with a quiet desperation, as if she was holding on to something fragile. If you don't want Dosti, Dev, we can cut it out. I know this feeling you have, but I'm sorry. She looked away, blinking rapidly, trying to hold it together. I know you've helped me a lot, but, main ab USS way main nahi dekti hun. I'm really sorry. Her voice cracked on the last words. And I could see the guilt and conflict in her eyes. She wasn't just saying no, she was struggling, torn between what she knew and what she felt. It was clear she wasn't ready, not for this, not for us. I took a deep breath, and smiled softly. It's new, really. Let's just be the way we were. I need you in my life, more than any tag or label, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was anything but. For a moment, she looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and then she reached out, gently taking my hand. Thank you for understanding, she whispered, her fingers tightening slightly around mine, as if to say more than words ever could. I squeezed her hand back, trying to lighten the moment. Or ye a worthless a ka waitage lekker mat gum, I said with a smirk, you're far too important for that. After that, we drank the beer, the movie still playing in the background, but neither of us cared. We were starting to feel buzzed. She began talking about Mihir, the one person I hated most. She shared everything, how much he had broken her, how deeply it hurt. I could see her eyes welling up again as she spoke, each word weighed down with pain. I hugged her gently, this time wiping away her tears, just like she had done for me during the whole of Anthika mess. After that, something happened that couldn't be described in words, a moment that blurred the lines between friendship and something deeper. It wasn't planned, it wasn't forced, it just happened again. Boundaries had one more day left in Haridvar, and as much as I cherished the moments we spent together, it was becoming increasingly clear that staying, just friends, was going to be a struggle. I could see it in Tanishka's eyes, she hadn't completely moved on from Mihir. No matter how many times I tried to pull her away from those memories, it felt like she was anchored to them, a ship lost at sea. Tanishka, I said as we sat on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below us. You're so much more than your past. Don't let him define your worth. Her eyes glistened with tears. Mui nahi pada, dev, kabi lagta hai ki main kuch binahi hun. I brushed the stray hair behind her ear. That's not true. You're beautiful and smart. Don't let Mihir's mistakes affect how you see yourself. We talked for hours, sharing stories, laughter. Despite the underlying tension, those 2 days flew by in a blur of comfort and companionship. But as the clock ticked closer to my departure, a heaviness settled in my chest. I didn't want to leave when it was time to say
goodbye.
Taniska stood by the door, her expression a mix of gratitude and something I couldn't quite place. Dev, I'm glad you came. But please, let's try to keep our boundaries. I don't want to go beyond friendship, she said softly. My heart sank at her words. I understand, I replied, forcing a smile. But it's hard to see you as just a friend. You mean so much to me. She stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. I'm not ready for anything more. I want to stay friends, Dev. Okay. I said, the weight of her request heavy on me. I'll respect that, just know I'll always be here for you. As I walked away, I felt a bittersweet ache in my heart. Tanishka was right, we needed boundaries, but deep down, I knew I was already beyond boundaries. Summer reflections. After our bittersweet
goodbye,
I headed to Mumbai for my summer internship. The city buzzed with energy, but every evening, I made it a point to call Tanishka as soon as I got back from the office. We talked about everything, from work woes to college gossip. Tanishka would share stories about her life, and I would listen intently, always trying to be the supportive friend she needed. Yet, at the back of my mind, I knew I had deeper feelings for her that she wasn't aware of. One evening, Tanishka casually mentioned, Mihir called me today. I could hear the tension in her voice. I picked up, but it didn't feel the same as before. He was trying to manipulate me again. I felt a pang of anger. You need to cut him off completely. Just tell him it's over and don't take his calls, I urged, trying to console her. I did tell him, she replied. Softly. I said, don't call me again. It was liberating, but it still hurts. I could sense she was slowly beginning to heal, but I also realized that she viewed our relationship purely as friendship. That realization stung, but I pushed it aside for the moment. One night, around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed, pulling me from my sleep. It was Tanishka, Dev, she said, her voice bright and bubbling with excitement. I got accepted into St. Xavier's for my MBA. My heart raced. I guess I was the first person she wanted to share this news with. Wow, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I exclaimed, feeling a surge of joy for her. Thank you. I couldn't wait to tell you, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. In that moment, everything felt perfect, as if our bond was growing stronger, despite the boundaries we had set that a day too short. It was the last week of my internship. During one of our usual calls, Tanishka casually mentioned, I'm coming to Mumbai to meet my sister before heading off to B school. I really need a vacation. I felt a surge of happiness. Mill socked Hainfer? I asked, hoping to see her one more time before everything changed. She paused for a moment. But won't your internship be over by then? She replied, Wo sabkodo, tu biasaya, I said, my voice laced with excitement. I could already picture us meeting again, like old times. But in her tone, I sensed she wasn't as eager as I was. Still, the thought of seeing her made me happy. She was coming a week after my internship was ending, and even though my work would be done, I told myself I'd wait an extra week, just to meet her for a few hours. Men do such things in love. The day came, and we met at the mall, a place that felt far too ordinary for a moment that meant so much to me. When I saw her sitting there, I couldn't keep my emotions in check. She looked like the most beautiful girl in the world, effortlessly stunning. My heart raced in a way it never had with Avantika. When you meet the right person, everything feels different. It's like you now understand why nothing ever worked out before. That's what it felt like with her. I handed her a handwritten card, every word an attempt to convey just how important she still was to me. I also gave her a box of her favorite chocolates, hoping it might take her back to a time when everything felt simpler, sweeter. She smiled politely, offering me a cute key ring in return. Thoughtful. After a few minutes of pointless conversation, we decided to watch a movie. It was an ordinary decision, but somehow, in that dimly lit theater, I found myself wanting to hold her hand. It was irrational, I knew that. She was my friend, nothing more. Yet, the urge to reach out and feel her fingers entwined with mine were strong. I hesitated for a moment before I slowly did it. And then, she gently pulled her hand away. It wasn't abrupt or dismissive, just a soft, subtle gesture, but it spoke louder than words ever could. She was still standing firmly in the realm of friendship. While I was crossing a line I shouldn't have. After the movie, she had to leave. I offered to book a cab, knowing this might be the last time I'd see her for years. I watched the minutes pass, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in my chest. But when I looked at her, I knew she didn't feel the same that as she got into the cab. A quiet sadness settled in. I tried to shake it off, but the thought lingered. Maybe this meeting wasn't what she had wanted at all. The truth hit me like a punch in the gut. Perhaps I had been asking for too much, my emotions clouding my judgment of what was really happening between us. Expectation is the root of all heartache, they say. And as I watched her cab disappear into the distance, maybe, just maybe, I had been hoping for something she was never ready to give. And the hardest part? I had waited an entire week in Mumbai just for these VE eating hours, shifting tides as the weeks went by. I could feel our conversations changing. What used to how effortlessly began to feel forced, filled with unspoken feelings. I was asking questions that blurred the lines of our friendship. How important am I in your life? I asked, half joking but serious. There was a pause, and I could sense her hesitation. Our laughter faded, replaced by polite smiles and vague replies. Tanishka no longer seemed fully engaged, and I could feel the weight of my expectations growing heavier. What we once cherished felt different, but we weren't losing our friendship. Instead, I was caught between wanting to maintain our bond and navigating the complexities of my evolving feelings. Back to campus. As my internship wrapped up, I returned to campus. Now as a senior, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement, with everyone's eyes glued to the juniors, like kids in a candy store. Our batch's gender ratio was a disaster, and it felt like every guy had become a self-appointed scout for the fresh faces. Classes had taken a sharp turn. No more cramming theories or memorizing. I'd see her name pop up on my screen, but it wasn't the same. Conversations that used to flow so naturally were now stilted, forced, and half-hearted. A call in the night. It had become some sort of unspoken rule in our cluster. Every weekend, no matter how chaotic our MBA life got, we'd party. Because what better way to handle the pressure of endless assignments, presentations, and exams than drowning them in cheap rum and bad decisions? It was one of those nights when we'd decided to celebrate surviving another week. The drinks were owing, the music was loud, and everyone was just trying to pretend life wasn't as exhausting as it was. Everyone was cracking one of their usual over-the-top jokes, and I was trying to blend in, holding a half-empty glass. When my phone buzzed on the table, I glanced down and saw Tam ashing on the screen. For a second, I didn't know how to feel. There was no excitement, no rush of adrenaline, just the weight of something that had once been easy and natural. I excused myself, leaving my drink behind as I walked out of the noisy room and headed to my own, sitting on the edge of my bed. I stared at the phone for a moment before picking up the call. "Hey," I answered, my voice steady but devoid of the warmth it once had. "Free hi?" she asked. "Han," I replied, keeping it simple. "Kia chal raha hai?" I tried to make small talk. "Nothing much," she sighed. "Bahut kam hai college main. Placement cell yaha p suba 5 beej meeting rkta hai." She started talking about the toxic culture of B school, how everything revolved around placements, the never-ending pressure, and how exhausting it had all become. I listened quietly, letting her vent. I knew what it felt like. I had been there just a year ago. "Tana Marthu," I said, "Mui yad hai." I was in the same shoes. But main time Nikolku bought karta the Raz. Manage karna padta hai na? She paused, and I could almost hear the irritation in her voice when she replied, "Tu kar li dahaga. Main nahi kar pa rahi. Kar nahi pa rahi ya karna nahi chati ho?" The words slipped out sharper than I intended. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Maybe she hadn't expected me to be this blunt. Maybe I hadn't either. But it was out there now, hanging between us, waiting for her to respond. There was a slight shift in her tone, something defensive. "Main tumhari girlfriend nahi hun jo raz tumher liye time Nikolan," she said, almost like she wanted to put up a wall between us. I felt a pang in my chest, but I stayed calm. "I know," I replied, my voice steady, "but last year be to tum marry girlfriend nahi ti, right? For tab kyan bot hodi ti raz?" She sighed, as if she had already thought of this answer. "Watum apni marzi asi bot kardi the apni consent asi." I didn't ask for it. I paused, her words sinking in. I wanted to say more, but she didn't give me the chance. "Ab mere pastime nahi hai. I'm busy, and I need time for myself. Last year itna kuch nahi the mere pas karn ko." Her words felt colder than they probably were meant to. But they hit me hard, and for a moment, I had no idea what to say. She was right. Friendship didn't come with a rulebook, and it didn't require daily conversations. I wasn't her boyfriend, and I had no right to expect her to call me regularly. It wasn't part of the deal.
Yeah.
I mumbled, more to myself than to her. "I'm not your boyfriend. Why would you need to talk to me every day?" But deep down, it stung. Because even though we weren't in a relationship, it had felt like we were something more. Or maybe I had just convinced myself of that, and now, she doesn't need to call me Choryi Sab, she sighed, her voice tired, almost frustrated. "Nahi," I interrupted, my tone ramer than I intended. "It's hurting me." "Hurting what?" she snapped back, confusion and irritation laced in her words. "I never gave you any hope. I never said anything like that. I paused for a second, feeling a weight settle in my chest. But I was. Just a time pass for you, right? No, she shot back. I talk to you as a friend. That's all. Please, for God's sake, Choryi Sab, she pleaded, her voice now low, almost as if begging me to let it go. 2 apnea placements. Pe Dianda, and let me focus on my life too. We both have too much going on. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a response. Okay. And?
Yeah.
I'm going now, KAL 8 Baya class, hi Mary, she added. For Kabi bot Cardi Hain. Desperation edged into my voice, 5 minutes or bot Nahi kar socked? Nahi, she said firmly, the nature in her tone hitting me like a brick. Good night, she said, and the line went dead before I could even respond. I looked at the screen, 19 minutes and 12 seconds. A call that used to last for hours, those late-night 2.5-hour conversations, reduced to mere minutes. After the call ended, I just sat there, staring at the phone, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I felt like I was drowning in questions, doubts, and an emptiness I couldn't shake. Was she right? Or had I crossed some invisible line? The questions swirled in my head like a storm I couldn't escape. I wondered if I was the one who had messed it all up, by confessing my feelings, by expecting things to stay the same. I opened WhatsApp and typed, my fingers shaking as the words spill out. I can't do this anymore, Tanishka. It's not even about my feelings for you, it's about something more. Last year, I was the same, busy, stressed, drowning in things I had to do. But I still made time for you. Not because it was convenient, but because you mattered to me. And now, I feel like I don't matter at all. I just want your friendship the way it was before. If not, then let's end this, let's not be best friends anymore. I stared at the message, rereading it over and over, my heart racing as I fought the urge to just delete it all. But I didn't. I hit send, knowing that with those words, something between us had shifted, maybe for good. The message ticked to delivered, and I sat there, staring at it, waiting. Waiting for what? I didn't know. Maybe for her to understand. Maybe for her to care. Maybe just for a sign that everything I was feeling wasn't in vain. But the longer I waited, the heavier the silence felt. I just wanted to be in her life, like I always had been, to matter in the way I once did. Her presence made me happy, not because I wanted something more, but because just knowing she was there made everything else in life a little easier to bear. Sometimes, it's not about holding someone close, but knowing that they're out there, existing, and that's enough to keep your heart from breaking completely. But that night, the silence stretched longer than I could bear. I held my breath, hoping for something, anything. Maybe she'd realize how much I just wanted things to be okay between us. How much I missed the way we were done. The next day, my phone buzzed. Okay, as you wish. So, can we be strangers again? And in that moment, it felt like the nail thread snapped. I was expecting something different. Something that would tell me she understood, that maybe she still cared in the way I hoped. But instead, I was just that friend whose absence wouldn't leave a mark. Maybe I was just a fleeting chapter in her story, one that had to end for her to move forward. While she was my whole book, I was merely a few pages she could easily turn past. The weight of what's left, and now, here I am, sitting with her keychain in my hand, tears filling my eyes, remembering everything. I kept hoping, wishing that somehow, things would just fall into place. In the chaos of it all, I didn't know what to do. Every day felt like a battle between holding on and letting go. I was waiting, constantly checking my phone, hoping for a text or a call that never came. Just silence. Meanwhile, life didn't stop. I had to push through the motions, classes, assignments, exams, and the looming pressure of NAL placements. All of it felt like a blur, like I was going through the steps of my life while my mind was still stuck somewhere in the past, trying to make sense of a puzzle that had no solution. I had friends who understood me, people who tried to fill that void. But no matter how much they tried, nothing could erase the weight of her absence. How do you move on from someone who once meant everything, and now they're just a memory, a stranger wearing the face of someone you used to know? As the weeks started passing, the whirlwind of campus placements hit us with full force. October came knocking, and with it, the high-stakes rush to justify those 20 lakh fees we had shelled out for our degrees. The atmosphere was toxic, placement week was in full swing. Companies began flooding the campus, everyone's inbox became a battlefield of CSAN shortlist confirmations, and on the 7th of October, finally got me first big break. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or more nervous. Evenings were no longer about sleep. They were about mock interviews, rehearsing answers, trying not to sound like a robot, but also not to mess up the one chance I had. The whole night, I was stuck in a cycle of reciting questions, anticipating what they might ask. By morning, I looked like a zombie, but no time for that. I had to get into Western business formals, clean-shaven, which I absolutely hated. The E-Day was a marathon. First, it was an aptitude test, a ruthless group discussion, and, as if I hadn't been put through enough, 2 rounds of intense interviews. By the time I reached the final round, my heart was doing laps, and I was functioning on sheer adrenaline. But then, it happened, and then, it happened. When the placement committee member called my name, I didn't know what to expect. She looked at me, smiled, and said, "You got placed." For a second, I just stood there. It was everything I'd worked for, all the late nights, all the stress, it had led to this. Without a second thought, I hugged her right there in front of everyone. The recruiters, the candidates, they all saw it, but at that moment, I didn't care. After that, I stepped outside, feeling like I was floating. I called my parents immediately, their voices a mix of pride and joy on the other end of the line. And then, before I even realized it, my thoughts turned to Tanishka. Without thinking twice, I typed, "Hey, I got placed." I hit send, and then, something stopped me. A sudden hesitation. I stared at the message, and a wave of uncertainty hit me. I deleted it. I didn't know why I did it, but I couldn't reach out to her, not like this. Something had shifted. Maybe it was the quiet realization that some things just aren't meant to be rekindled. I remembered when I first got into IIM Goa, I'd called her before anyone else. She was the one I'd wanted to share everything with. But now, something stopped me. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't letting go, it's accepting that the person you once turned to first is now a stranger. Days passed, and once again, on the 14th, this year, I found myself feeling least excited about my own special day. Hours passed in quiet anticipation, each notification making my heart race, wondering if it might be her. I kept waiting, hoping for that one message from Tanishka. But as the night deepened, the silence grew heavier, and I felt the quiet ache of her absence. Around 2 in the morning, I wandered out to the balcony, the same balcony where every memory from the past seemed to end me. I sat down, lit up a cigarette, and as the smoke curled into the night, I found myself whispering, "I'll wait for her. I'll wait till my lungs are filled with ashes." But what was harder than waiting was the endless loop of "what if" replaying in my mind like an unbroken song. If I could go back, would I have held on tighter? Would I have told her more? Often how much she meant. Sometimes, the hardest thing to live with is knowing you did everything, yet still wondering if it was enough. Then, my phone buzzed in my hand, jolting me back. An unknown number appeared on the screen, and my heart leapt. Could it be her? I answered, holding my breath, only to hear a familiar voice on the other end. "Hello," she said, softly. It was Avantika. For a moment, I wondered if I should continue the conversation. Part of me hesitated, questioning if this connection was worth revisiting. But strangely, I felt a sense of calm. Maybe I didn't hold any grudges against her after all. The hurt had dulled, and while I hadn't fully healed, I knew I didn't hate her. "Happy birthday," she said, her voice gentle, almost cautious. "Thanks," I replied, with a quiet smile she couldn't see. It felt strange yet comforting, like finding an old photograph you'd forgotten existed. There was a pause, then she asked, "How have you been?" "It's been a while."
Yeah,
"It has," I replied, my voice steady. "Life's been busy. I guess I've gotten used to some changes, you know how it is." She laughed softly, a sound I hadn't heard in ages.
yeah,
"I do." And, almost hesitantly, she said, "I'm sorry again. I should have been honest about things from the start." "It's okay. I've moved on," I said, surprising myself with how true it felt. I don't have anything left for you, not the way I used to. She fell silent for a moment, then spoke, her words gentle but loaded. Life moves fast, doesn't it? One day we're planning our future together, and the next, we're strangers on the other end of a call. I couldn't help but ask, how's Mehul? One you once hid from the world, and from me? There was a quiet sigh on the other end. We're not in touch anymore. I thought about asking why, but before I could, she added, maybe we all just play the roles we're meant to. Some people come into our lives to stay, and others, maybe they're just there to point us in the right direction. Honestly, I've learned a lot because of you and because of Mehul as well. Her words hit harder than I expected, like an ache I thought I'd buried. I couldn't help but wonder if this was how it would end with Tanishka, too. Just another story, another stranger I'd eventually let go. No. I didn't want that. I didn't want her to just be part of my past. Hey, are you there? Avantika's voice snapped me back. I cleared my throat, trying to steady myself.
Yeah.
I'm here. Her words felt hauntingly true. Maybe that's what strangers really are, guides in disguise, showing us parts of ourselves we couldn't see on our own, I replied. She paused, and then asked quietly, Anne, how's Tanishka? I hesitated, unwilling to share too much. She's any. Everything's any. Take care, Avantika, I said, anality in my tone but no bitterness. You too, she replied softly. And hey, maybe one day, we'll cross paths again. Even as strangers. As the call ended, a strange blend of closure and curiosity lingered. I stepped back inside, leaving the door open, a quiet invitation. To the unknown, to whoever or whatever might step through today. As the night fell, I felt the weight of all the connections I'd held and lost. Life, I realized, was an endless cycle of arrivals and farewells, of meeting people who were both strangers and mirrors of what we seek, and somewhere, in the midst of it all, there was Tanishka, a name, a memory, a question that lingered like an unfinished story. Maybe this was the beginning of a new journey, one where every stranger held a piece of my past and a glimpse of my future, waiting to unfold. Life has a way of leading us to where we need to be, even if it's with strangers. Strangers are just familiar souls who meet us at the crossroads of who we were and who we're meant to be. End. About the author writing this story was an exploration of the complex and beautiful layers of love and friendship, two forces that define, mold, and occasionally shatter us. With connections that appear unbreakable and love that seems to last forever. College is an intense time. But when those bonds are tested, we learn who we truly are and what we value most. I hope this book resonates with anyone who's struggled to balance friendship and love, and who's had to confront the painful but necessary art of letting go. I hope it stays with you the way it stayed with me while